Yo, what's up, guys? How you doing? This is Hassan Omotoba. I In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I was able to hack into an IP camera. So I decided to play around with hardware hacking lately because of the fact that Nigeria or Africa in general, we don't have a government body that look into hardware products that we consume from other countries, especially China. So, and what actually prompted me to look into it was an incident that happened in 2024, which was a pager attack incident that was caused by Mossad agents from Israel that killed, I think, about 12 people and injured over 3,000 people in Lebanon and part of Syria. So, and this attack was possible because of the fact that they intercepted the supply chain for the device. And looking at Nigeria or Africa as a whole, we depend, like a lot of our hardware products are, I would say 99% of our hardware products are basically from other countries. So we don't really manufacture our hardware products. So this particular attack is possible to be done and to happen. Like it's very easy to to be done on us as an Africa. So, and that got me thinking, and I decided to just start exploring with hardware hacking. So normally I'm an hardware engineer. I design and develop hardware products. So I do PCB design, I write codes for microcontrollers, and yeah, those are what I do. But I just started to look into the hardware hacking lately. I started looking into hardware hacking lately. So let's get started. So today I'm going to be looking into how I was able to particular device I decided to start my hardware journey with this. So it's an IP camera from a Chinese manufacturer. I think they're called TZ Tech, but they usually use this brand, which is V380. And I've seen this particular camera in quite a lot of varieties. Like I've seen the one with multiple lenses and two lens, like three lens and all. And this camera, they are quite cheap. So, and I guess that is why a lot of people are getting it though. So I decided to get one. I think I got this. The price was around, was not 30,000 naira. That is about about let's say $25. So that is what I got it for. So I'm going to switch to my bench to show you the setup of the device itself because I've decided to play around with it. I've opened it already. So switch to my bench camera. So here's the camera here. So this camera basically can actually like rotate within certain angle, and at the same time it has speaker and it has microphone which enables it to pick the audio in its environment. And also, yeah, the main thing the camera is meant for, which is an image sensor to capture its environment. It has that. At the same time it has an SD card for storing maybe whatsoever is captured locally. So I guess that is what that should be for, but I haven't tried that out. Then, so looking at this camera, I saw that its main brain, the processor, is this chip. I Enika or Anika. I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. So I hope I get that. So you guys can see this. And even searching this guy, making a search on Google, I realized that this guy has quite a lot of vulnerabilities that people has exploited in the past. So which means this guy is also likely be very vulnerable. So yeah, and I was able to confirm that. And at the same time, it's used this. Let me know if the camera can see this. It's not clear. So okay, you guys should not worry about that. We are going to be seeing the part number of this. So what I'm trying to show is the flash chip, and the flash chip is basically where the instruction, the code that the processor perform an actions on where they are stored. So that is the flash chip. Is a non-volatile storage, so which means even without power, the content still remains in the flash chip. So that is basically what it is about. And you are going to know why I have to like tell you specifically about this guy. And what you are seeing here is an antenna, is an onboard antenna. I think is a Wi-Fi antenna specifically designed for a 2.5 gigahertz transmission. So for Wi-Fi. And so you could see here so that some wires, and these wires are basically for me to monitor the logs, like what is happening inside of the processor, like how is the processor making its process. So this is basically it, and I was able to easily like get this because if you look at the board closely, you see that there are some labelings on the board, and I was able to saw this label TX and RS. So based on my hardware knowledge, I quickly get it that that was for the UART protocol, UART communication. So you can think about it like a port that enables you can actually program the device from this port, and at the same time you can also see how the device is processing its instruction. So I was able to uh look to tap into the protocol. So the connection is what you are seeing here. So basically the yellow and the white, I think one of them is TX and RS. Why this green? You always need a ground, is the ground, so as to ensure that if I should interface this with my PC, they are both at same ground potential. So that is basically why the ground is there, because without that it's possible that the communication would not be possible. So it's going to fail, in a simple term. So let's get started. So the first thing I did after like trying to get familiar with the board, to see what it has on it and making some research about certain components, so was that I decided to extract the firmware from this particular guy. And initially when I tried to do that, when I wanted to do the extraction, I was not with this guy. I haven't purchased this guy. So what I had then was this. So it's also based on the same CH341A programmer, but just that this guy has a zip connector, this stuff, and at the same time it has this clip that makes it easier. So I was able to do it then was that I had to like desolder this, the flash chip, and then solder wires on it and connect to necessary pins and extract the firmware. So it's quite hectic, but yeah, I was able to get it done and I soldered it back. But yeah, luckily I got my hand on this, and this makes everything easier. So the red wire on this clip denotes the pin 1. So pin 1 of every chip, so they are usually marked by a notch. If you look closely on the chip, you see you have a notch by the top left corner. So that is where the pin 1 is. So the red denotes that, and at the same time we also ensure that your connection to the sieve connector is also correspond with the pin 1 of it. So if you look at the board of this guy, you see pin 1, and at the same time you see the sieve connector basically has about 8 pins. And this, looking at this left side, you can see, I don't know if you can see, yeah, let me zoom in. Looking at the symbols here, the labels here, you can see we have 25xs, and we have the remaining half portion, the top portion. You can see demarcation here. So the down part, the top part. So the down part, the 25xx. So it's just a, most of the SPI flash chip out there usually start with the 25, while the 24 is for EEPROM. And if you turn to the back, you would see it's clearly, so BIOS is for BIOS chip, like, and the other top parts for EEPROM. So we are concerned about these down parts. So we have to ensure that our pin 1 falls with the pin 1 of this this part. And one way to know that is by looking at the symbol and the top left corner of where there's a notch on the down part, the 25x. So that is where we are going to connect to. So just connect, and you then, yeah, clamp it. So yeah, make sure that it's well fixed. At the same time, I'd have to like select this guy, because this can actually act as a TTL and USB to TTL, and also as an SPI. So currently ensure that it is in SPI mode. So we have to do our connection to the chip, and we have to be careful about this. So the pin 1, forget, make sure it matches with all the pins. So sometimes we might not be lucky with this at first time. Let's see if we get that. Then we connect this to our PC. Let's do the connection. All right. So yeah, you notice that a red LED came up when I did the connection, and that is to tell you that the SPI chip, the flash chip, is sharing power with some parts of the board, so, or all the subcircuitry on the board. And this sometimes can actually cause issue, especially if the target board consume a lot of power. Your PC might not have the enough power to supply your programmer with, such that it's able to power the whole thing, including the flash chip. So in that case, is either you need to extract, to desolder the chip from the board and extract the firmware, then you solder it, or you could find a way to just cut the power line and then join it back on the board. So let's try this out, and we hope that we are going to be lucky. So I'm going to switch to my screen. So yeah, so here's my screen, and I've created this folder for it. So called I named it V380 research. So as you can see, nothing is currently in the folder, so let's get started. So for us to extract the instruction, the firmware or the OS from the chip, so we have to use this particular library called flashrom. So it's been in existence for quite a long time, and what you can basically use this for is to, you can use it to read, to write, you can use it to even erase, and to monitor, or to just check the contents of a flash chip. So in this our case, we are going to be reading, we need to read because we want to extract the contents of the flash chip. So to be sure that our programmer is properly connected and it senses the flash chip that we connect to it, so we have to use this particular command. So the flashrom programmer, so this is a programmer flag, then we are telling the flashrom that we are using this particular programmer 341A. So then we press enter. So we have some issue here, so which means we need to look at our connection and readjust some things. So I'm going to do that and see if I did not miss out on anything. Okay, let's say before that, before even do that, let me see if my PC is even sensing detecting the programmer connected to his USB port. So I'm running on MacBook, so I'm running Mac OS. So yours, if you are running on Linux, might want to use USB LS-USB. For Windows, I'm not too familiar with it, but for Mac OS, so I got this guide that makes my life easy. So yeah, I could see that he did not sense the programmer. So what you are seeing here is another USB to TTL converter, which we are going to be using soon. So I have to like go back to the connection and see if I've connected wrongly. All right, so now, all right, you can see that I can now dictate this USB UART to TLPT. So now let's try our command once again. Flashrom -p, then our programmers, and let's click enter. All right, so I think we are lucky this time. So we could see that we successfully our programmer successfully dictates the flash chip, and which is this. So what I was trying to show you the other time that was not clear, the pass number of the chip. So here is it. So it's basically from this guys. So and it has variants C and D. So I think what I have on the chip is this. So either of the two, so we will be able to successfully extract the firmware. So now the next thing to do is to extract the firmware, because we've confirmed that our programmer is detecting the chip. So for 1A, then SPI, and we use a flag how which denotes that we want to read, then the file name we want our binary folder to be stored with. So I'll call it backup dot bin, then I click enter. So it's currently reading flash. This might take some minutes, and I'm going to pause and then resume back when it's done. So you see that it has successfully extract the content of the flash chip. So let's check what we have. We have this. So it is always advisable that you read the content from the flash chip twice. So because you cannot tell if when you are reading from the flash chip, like the right, so it's always advisable to read the content twice, and because you cannot tell if there has been a particular error has caused some contents of the flash chip to perhaps just flip, and a single flip in the contents from the flash chip can actually cause a lot of issue. We don't want that to occur, and at the end you can then compare the size and the the size, and to also see if they both have the same content in them. So I'm going to be reading this once again, and I will be showing this as backup one, and let's read, and I'll pause and come back to it later when. Alright, this is also done, and let's confirm. Okay, you can see we have both files here, and so we're going to be using this md5 command to confirm the contents if they are the same. So you can see their vectors are basically the same thing, so which means our first read and the second is actually the second confirmed that our first read was okay, so can proceed with any of them. So the next thing is for us to find a way to convert the binary files into a human readable file. So, and for us to be able to do that, we need a particular library to do so, which is binwalk. And I have installed this on my laptop. You can also do that at your end. So the binwalk backup.bin. So I'm going with the first read, and this would basically show you the contents of the flash chip. I think I would have to change the background some minutes. Alright, so I decided to change the background of the shell interface because I could see that the initial color was not clear enough, and I increased the font a bit. So using the command binwalk backup.bin, so which was the file that we extracted from our flash chip. So here are the layouts of what is in the flash chip. So, and it makes sense, it makes a lot of sense. And you see these are the address to every sections that we have, start address to every section that we have in the flash chip, and at the same time their size. And we have the clip blob, we have the image, so this is basically the kernel image, and we have this like, yeah, the kernel for the Linux OS. You can see the Linux version is this, and we have this quite important file system, which is squashfs. So squashfs is a read-only uh it's a read-only file structure. So, and it usually contains like a lot of important files, so such as perhaps password or some configurations that the manufacturer does not want an unauthorized person to modify. So, and we have another squashfs file system here, and this seems to look like a mirror of this because their size is basically the same thing. But let's check that out and confirm. And we have the JFFS2. So, and this is another type of file system that where user details, perhaps your, maybe when you set your hotspot password or interface your camera with your hotspot password, your Wi-Fi, your router, home router, or whatsoever. So those details, those configurations might be stored here. And we still have another squashfs file system here. So now this is to tell us that our binwalk was able to read, to interpret the contents of what we extracted. So the next thing for us is to convert these binary files into a readable file. So And how to basically do that is by using binwalk. Then we use the extract flag, then the name of our file to be extracted, and we click enter. Oops, looks like we've got some errors here. And let's see. All right, the activity structure service routes. And so it looks like the library is finding it difficult to extract the squashfs and the jffs. So let me quickly see. Okay, I think I'm going to pause this and come back and see what exactly is the issue. All right, so it turns out that the initial we did that showed some errors, really give us something. But looking at the extracted, this is the contents that we need. So we generated this folder extractions. So looking into it, we have this folder. Let's see the then we have a Linux 4.423. So it turns out that the binwalk is finding it hard to really convert the squashfs and the gffs file system into a readable format. And I'm thinking that is as a result of the fact that the uh, the zip uh the zip the zip formats, like what the squashfs and jffs file system are zipped with, so it's not really like going well with it. So that was why we are experiencing the issue. And for the formats for the uh okay, let me just quickly binwalk. I think I have to go back to cd. So for the formats for the squashfs, zip format for it is usually the zlib. And yeah, and you have some couple of other format also. So I think when we did our binwalk to see the layout of the partitions, like how they are partitioned, we could see quite some number of, so yeah, the compression, it was compressed with xz. So I guess we're experiencing that issue because of that. So what is basically happening is that it's doing some recursive like read, and it's extracting the format and still generating a bin format. When you extract it, it generates a bin format and it doesn't seem to want to stop. So what we just have to do in this case, we can manually extract a particular portion of this memory system. We can do that. And to do that, we are going to be using a command dd. So this is a data duplicator. So, and what you just have to be concerned about is that we have to know our input file, and we also have to maybe specify an output file, and then the offset, and at the same time the size of the offset, like the data content. So I think I'll be going first with this particular file system, this first squashfs. So, and we are going to be reading it out, and looking at the description here, we could see that it has a block size of this and image size of 140 114 1,141,930 bytes. So, and that's what we are interested in. So this specifically, this is telling us this is size of the data content we have inside of this partition, this first squashfs partition. So let's do the readings and all. So the command, is basically this way: input file system, so which is our backup bin file, then our output file system. So let's name this squash fs1, so to signify for the first partition we're going to be reading out. Then bs cost1, and so that means we are setting the block size to be equals to 1. That means 1 byte, and then the size, so we set the counts to be this. So I've missed out on something, the offsets. So just think about it to be the starting address of the register to read for, which is 1. So the start address is this, we have here in decimal. So that is 193740. Ah shit. So let's extract the next two squashfs file systems, and then can also look at these gff s2 files also. And so let's name this to be squashfs3, and block size 1 byte. Then don't forget the offsets for this. You also have to change this, and the count, so which translates to the data size, which is this. And then so we could, let's enter. So why we are doing this is that we have to get as much as possible information that is needed, that we need to basically gain a super admin access, like a root access into the IP camera. So that is why we have to like get these files, convert them to a readable format, and then try to uh, do some work on them and see if we can actually get some important information that will enable us to gain access into the camera and can have everything about it. Like, yeah, so that is basically why we are doing this. So then we've gotten the third squashfs file. Now let's try the fourth squashfs file, and is this. So we use the same command. The data size for this guy is this. then the offset is 7111848, and don't forget to rename this to be hot squash fs file, and press enter. It's going to take some few minutes or seconds, then it's done. And you can also try to, when it's done, we look into the Alright, so this is done. It took about 42.3 seconds. So then we have the four squashfs file. So we can actually do the same thing for the gffs file. We can do the same thing for the kernel file. Then what you are seeing here, the bootloaders. But what we are interested, the file we are interested in the most, here is the squashfs file, because that is where some important details used to be stored, and the core OS files, that is where they are usually stored. So yeah, now we've gotten the files, but the file are still in the image format, so we still have to find a way to convert those files into a video format. So to do that, we use on squashfs, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so which is on squash, yeah, squashfs command. So these commands, you basically have to like install them on your PC. And let's start doing those. It's just a way of unzipping files. So let's do that. Press enter, and what do we have? So we have successfully unzipped this. So we have 55, 26 directories, 420 sim links, and all. So let's ls and see what we've got. And where is it? Okay, I think this is it here. So let's cd into his bash root ls, and yes, we've successfully started it. We could see these are a typical Linux file system. So, and there's this interesting file system that I always like to jump to, which is the etc, because it do contain a particular file, or yeah, where the root password is to be stored. So I cd into the etc file and ls. Then I see something like shadow. To see shadow, see pass wd and all. And yeah, let's check this out. So there is a particular command that you can just input and can search for some certain keywords, and you have them printed on the command line here, so you can scroll through them and get the information you want. That is if it's kind of difficult for you to get some information. So let's move on. So we check this. Let's password. I'm going to be using that's password. So looking into this file, so what we could see, you see root as x00 root being the daemon. So there is not much information to use here. So I guess we have to check somewhere else. So turns out that what we are looking at here contain some quite interesting information that I just, after doing some little search now, I was able to see how important these informations are. So the first information, so especially on this line, and that's actually reveal a lot. So you could see that they are separated by delimiters, which is a colon. So the first information here, which is stated as root, so is the user name, and that is the login name. So which means, think of it like the the name your computer you give to you give to your computer, like aside from that shows up whenever you want to, like maybe input your password to access your computer. So just like for instance here, what I have here, so for me, my username is user MacBook Pro, so I haven't changed it from the default. So think of it like that. So, and this is going to be used for us later on. And at the same time, the next column that follows its next section that follows it is X. So the X is supposed to be for password that we need to log in into the file system, but here it's just appeared as X, and that is because it has been encrypted, and it has been encrypted in the shadow folder, so which is here. So we are still going to, that's what we are going to be looking at next. And so the next column we have here is the user ID. So, and the UID value we have here is 0. So that's basically, that is the highest what's it called, leverage or access that someone could have. So which is basically like a super admin access. So which means that is the topmost admin access, which is 0. And the next one is a group ID. So, and it's also 0. And we have the user info, so which is just like a description of the username, so which is still tagged as root. And this other part is trying to tell us that the shell, the login shell or command line that is used is this pin shell. So, and yeah, so that's basically it. Now let's switch to this. Let's check the shadow command and see what we have there. Shadow, then yes. So you could see we have the root username and we have the password. So, and this password, whenever I see the password format, encrypted format that has this $1, it's basically an MD5. They've used an MD5 crypto algorithm so to encrypt this, and which is quite a weak algorithm. So, and the some our encrypted file also have a sort. So think of a sort like a random key that is used as the main form of encryption to the main password, which means aside from the password, they also added some other contents alongside with the text file before converting it into like this hashed format. So, and that might be quite difficult for us to like figure out. Well, it's possible that when you do a quick search online, you might be able to see other people that have worked on this, and which was what I did, and I saw that exactly this sort, this encrypted format was out there, and I was able to quickly decrypt it and that was what I used as my root access password. So, and let's go on. Let's try to explore some other things. So I think also there was this file that I looked into. That was, I think it's there. Okay, just check some other things. Check the hosts. Search file. It's folder. Hosts. Okay. Hosts. So that contains the information about connection. Let's go back. HFS. There's nothing. Let's see the into the yes. Okay. Then I'm just trying to look into some other file. Perhaps you could see some useful information. Yeah. So, let's go back. These will log store in. Just pumping some code and all. So this is also an important section that we decide to reverse engineer and for us to understand how we of things operate. So okay. Yeah, binary pi, so that's where we should it. Right. So I think let's go back to also explore some the other squashfs files to see what they contain. So and don't forget we use squashfs. We've done for squashfs1. Let's do for the next one. So it was through img, then compile using system processor to block to write it to make directory because file exists. All right, so the issue we are getting as a result of this, we already have this, which means we basically have to move this or rename this. So I think I'm going to create a directory, call it the squash. I call it squashfs. Yes. That's about it. All right. So we can then move our squash fs root into this. So by the time we extract on that one, it's going to unpack it successfully. So we successfully moved. So we've successfully moved the unpacked squashfs one into our folder. So let's squash the second squashfs image. Alright, so I think now we didn't use any issue. Let's check it out. Okay, let's see the into it. I have sleeves and module. So this seems to contain some other info. And this we have lead. Okay, so this files and modules for the Wi-Fi. Alright, so I guess those files might be needed if you want to reverse engineer the entire system. So that's another interesting section to look into. So I think we have to let's rename this into let's name the folder squashfs root. Let's name it into squash fs root 2. Alright, so now let's move it into this guy. Squash fs root 2. Move into the squash fs folder, and we've done that. So now let's extract the third one and see if we can get some interesting things from it also. Squash. Let's see. There's image. And so we've done that. Let's see the into content first there to okay. Here we have bin, we have lib, we have local, we have modules, we have spin and share. And check out bin. Spark, something interesting. Let's check the local and spark, something more interesting. Let's check also the share. Something else that is interesting. Okay, let's see. Let's just have the first scripts. Let's see what the first script says. So this I'm sharing our scripts. Feed yourself. Podcast. That's nice. Around that, listen around that. This. So this looks like the network setup, default setup for maybe user like interface into it and set up their own configurations and cd. Alright, so let's try for the import squashfs file, so don't forget we have to rename this so that we can move it into our squashfs file folder. So I should then rename this to be tree, and then so we then move it into the bash, then move into the squashfs folder. That's done. So now let's unpack the fourth one. It's image source 39 files. Let's see the purpose. And yes, we have apps, module, ISPs, configuration, internet service provider, I guess. Let's see what the ISP has. And we have the config, and this MIPI seems to be for either the camera or a display. I guess it should be for how the camera is interfaced with. Let's do this. So let's go back and let's move the root file, the extracted root file into this squashfs folder. Let's remove, but let's not forget to rename. For this file, then we can then safely remove it. So we've done that. So let's see into the squashfs info we've collected so far. So this is everything here. So I think I'm going to end the video here for now, and we continue later. So in the next part we are going to be looking into what to do with those informations, and then how to gain the root access, and from then how to even do a lot of interesting things, because lately I just discovered some quite interesting stuff to be done, like by remotely accessing the camera via telnet protocol and all. So see you in the next part and enjoy. Bye.